Okay.
All right, guys, welcome to the unofficial Sitecore training session 5, which is odd because we did session 6 the other day, so a little bit out of order. Um, so, just to introduce ourselves, my name is Akshay Sura. You guys know Mike Reynolds. We today have Michael West, who works closely with Adam, and both of them together build PowerShell module, which is used by pretty much everyone we know. I really don't think how I could function without it. So do a lot of people think about it. So props to Michael and Adam to do such a great job. And his information is at the bottom over there. If anyone wants to get in touch with him, ask him questions, things of that sort. So the next one is about Stack Exchange. So we have a public beta of Sitecore Stack Exchange where people can post questions, get answers, and there's a lot of community stuff happening there as well in the meta part where we're posting events and things of that sort. We strongly encourage you guys to get in there, post questions, post comments, upvote, try to see if you can figure out some, answers. And if you're an aspiring MVP, this is a very good place for you to rack up reputation. So you could use it against your MVP application, which is coming up or in the future.
I would say it's more than MVP. It's about helping everybody in the community. But anyways, all right. So the Sitecore Slack. I mean, I'm sure you guys know about this. If you don't, please, you can reach out to one of us. We'll send you an invitation to it. It's basically just, I would say a community chat room where you can actually ask people in real time for help. I think we're way over 1,400 members on here from all around the world, and people are on there at all times of the day, and definitely jump on and just ask questions around Sitecore, or even just say hello to people. So definitely jump on board.
All right. The other thing we're trying to do is, we're trying to reach people. So we started a community mailing list, so it's like a newsletter. So for the community reach the community, because we're not able to get to all the people over the social networks, so we're trying to get through to them via email. So any community announcements of any events, any action items we need to take. So we're trying not to send more than one email at the most per week. This week we haven't sent anything out, but usually it will have content related to any community driven event or things which are happening for you to take any action on.
All right, so what's the purpose of this? Why are we doing this? Well, over the years, I would say that, we've worked with people from all around the world, whether they be in different countries, different time zones, or even just down the street. Seriously, it's all around kind of, basically, sharing knowledge. So, we've noticed that a lot of people may like have to jump onto a cycler project, and they really haven't had any, training on it. And somebody will be like, well, I have to learn, kind of figure out all this stuff on my own, and they're kind of isolated and nobody's really helping them. So what we're trying to do is kind of like remove that barrier and just share what we know, given what we've done for years, and bring that knowledge to you. And definitely, I do want to say that if you are somebody who knows some part of Sitecore and know it very well, please reach out to us. We definitely are also looking for other people to, share what they know on these training series sessions. Because really, at the end of the day, learning everything about Sitecore isn't something you'll do overnight. I mean, it takes years. I mean, I've been working with Sitecore for almost 10 years, and I don't know everything. But seriously, we have to do it together as a community, and that's what we're doing here. Because really, at the end of the day, we want to make sure people just don't build something and just throw it over to QA and just, oh, here you go. It's not my problem. I'm done.
All right. So today, as Akshay and Mike have spoke about, today we'd like to talk about Sitecore PowerShell extensions. And many of you may have already heard about it. You may have used it. Uh, you may even be an expert at it. Um, I'd like this session to help create a broad understanding of what the module is and what the audience could be for the module. It's not purely development, but it could be even business users. And really, we'd like to have you be enabled to use the module with no PowerShell experience, and then work your way up to maybe being a PowerShell expert. And so let's see what we're going to talk about today. So really, an introduction to the module. And then we're gonna talk about the different features that are right out of the box. Something that when you install the module, you can use right away. It doesn't require any coding, because that's what is helpful to people, is to be able to use it right away and not have to have cracked open the manual yet. And then we'll go a little bit into the nuts and bolts of the module, how common users of the module will build specific pieces for functionality that their business requires. And if we've got some time, we'll cover some of the advanced capabilities. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the out-of-the-box features that you get with the module. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we'll talk through the out-of-the-box, the bundle tools, the audit reports, the context menu, some things like that, and then later on we can hop back to the screen. All right. So let me go ahead and show my screen. Sorry, it's taking just a moment to get it shared. Okay. And Akshay and Mike, can you see my screen fine?
Yep, I can see it.
All right, good deal. So what I've got here is just a standard installation of Sitecore. I think this particular one is 8.1. And I'll go through real quick what's there. I won't talk too much about the installation process. We've got lots of documentation about that, but I'll just show you. Hey, once you've got it installed, what are some things that are there right away? So when you log into Sitecore, if you're at the Launchpad, you'll notice that there's a PowerShell ISE tile here. From here, it's like a mini application that you could launch, and as a script author, you could get working right away. We won't cover that right away, but just so that you know it's there, and later on when we use the ISE, it's available. Okay, so I go to the desktop, and right from the menu, the Sitecore menu, we get a few different shortcuts available. One is the console. This is a command line interface. It's more technical. You've got to, you know what commands you're trying to run, so we won't do that quite yet. And then we've got the toolbox. The toolbox is really cool because it comes with some pre-packaged bundled tools, as I spoke about earlier. And these bundled tools are a way for you to take advantage of the module with really no knowledge of how it all works, knowledge of, let's say, what commands are running, how to write any PowerShell code. It's just a tool that you start right away. So if I were to launch the index viewer, for example, it's going to run this little PowerShell dialog, and then it gives you this first interface, and here we've got a drop down, and I can pick which index I want to search from, and then I hit OK, and then I'll get a new screen where I can pick the root of where to begin the search, and all of this is going against the content search API. So what we've done is effectively written PowerShell code that interacts with that content search API and performs all the things that you would be familiar with that you may have written in C# and bundled with some DLL. So in this tool, we've given you a way to use that functionality, but it didn't require us to write any custom DLL. It's all PowerShell scripts, and so then I can pick the root. I could write some free text, but then I just hit OK. And once we see the results, you could say, well, this is kind of similar to I think it's called Luke. It's similar to the .NET or the Java-based index viewer for Lucene, where you would pick an index folder and then it would bring you the results. And what we've done is we've given you a way to do that right from the interface. And if I pick the show full info, then I'm going to get a dialog that says, hey, here are all the search results item fields, and then I can kind of scan through here. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, this is really useful, but it's probably not useful to a business user. Well, that's okay. This tool is really geared towards the developer who's interested in what's in the index, but they don't want to deploy some new tool out to the server, or this is just convenient because they're right from within the interface. So that's an example of a really simple bundled tool. You'll also notice that this index viewer is in what looks like a report, and that's great. What that means is that the module bundles a way to view reports, and later on I'll show you some example reports that you don't necessarily interact with, but they all use this little interface, and you're able to export data into CSV or Excel and so forth. You're even able to create these commands that act upon the data that's in here. In this case, we've got a rebuild index button, and then a refresh, or I want to maybe open the particular item that's associated with this. So it's a tool. The index viewer is a tool to view the index, but it's also really a report that has actions that you can use to operate against the data that's here. Okay, so we would move on to the next toolbox tool. We've got this rules-based report. We've got like a task manager. What are all the scheduled tasks that are available in the system? So today, as a developer, if I want to go, or an admin, if I want to go manage the scheduled tasks, I would need to go through the tree, and then I would need to then manage those. Even like the date and time, it's kind of tricky. So if I pick one of these and I do edit schedule, I have a clean interface for specifying the start and the end date. I can even put the time. I can put days. And anyone that's familiar with the scheduled task interface, you're really manipulating a bunch of numbers that are pipe delimited, and it gets kind of tricky. And so here we take away some of the complexity. We've abstracted that, so you get this simple interface. I can set 1 day. I could maybe make it 2 days for the rebuild suggested, and maybe I just decide, okay, I don't want to manipulate it at all. If we look at this one right here, I could execute the archive item versions, and we'll see here that there's these different commands. So let me jump down to where this exists, so you can correlate between what the interface is showing and what actually exists in Sitecore. So if I go to tasks and I go to schedules, then I see this archive items versions. So this archive item versions is a scheduled task that I set up that runs a PowerShell script command, and it executes a script that I've defined somewhere in the tree. So there's an item that contains some PowerShell script, and then there's the schedule. Well, see, this is what I'm talking about. It's pipe limited, and oftentimes you may have to go refer back to the original, like some guide or something that tells you what these all mean, and maybe a new developer, they're going to have no clue what that means. And so if I go to the edit schedule, I can change this. Here I'll change it to 2 days, and then if I refresh this item, we see now it's 2 days. Well, if I was a new developer, I really wouldn't have known that. So from just for a training perspective, we've come up with ways to simplify interacting with Sitecore for new users. Okay, and so that was the task manager where I could execute and edit schedules. I can also do some other things like the create anti-package. That's really been a very popular feature in Sitecore Rocks. So anyone that's worked with Sitecore Rocks would know that there's no way in Sitecore today to just uninstall a module. So if you ever installed something and go, oh, I need to restore it back to what I had previously, you maybe have to refer back to some serialized items, or you restore the database, or hopefully you don't have to do that. So creating the anti-package is an interface that allows you to first pick a package. So in this case, I can pick the sample package, and then it's going to generate an item that reverses whatever was being installed. So let's say, for example, I added a child item to the home item. Well, if it didn't exist before, it'll remove it. Or maybe if the item already exists, but I'm changing it, it will create a backup of that item. And so then when I install the anti-package, it's really just reverting back to a previous version. And let's say that I've got some files. I could have some files in the package, like let's say a README or DLL. The anti-package will uninstall that DLL or essentially swap out whatever was there. So a little more advanced if you're new to Sitecore, but just know that, hey, there's a tool that's there to do that, and maybe you've got some ideas about tools you'd like to build that are simplified functionality for your users that maybe they wouldn't have gotten out of the box, or you'd have to do a lot of special coding to do. And I'll show you in a little bit ways to use dialogues and what are all the dialogues available within the module. So let me take a quick break from this to just remind you that, hey, we've got a module out on the marketplace, so this is where you're going to download it. If you select the download, there's going to be a lot of packages, and so just so that you're not confused about it, if you use in Sitecore 8.2, you're going to go to 4.2 for Sitecore 8. So that's the latest and greatest version that we have. But if you are on Sitecore 7, we've got you covered. So we have support from 7 to 8, and if you are using Sitecore 6.6, for example, we've got some older packages that would take care of you, but unfortunately we've quit supporting that in the more recent versions, and there's some good reasons for that. We also have an auditable reports module that we've broken out in 4.2. So if you've used the module before and now you're starting to use it on newer installations, just know that the auditable reports or the rules-based reports has been broken out, and it's a separate package. We created some special functionality for it, and we didn't want to really bloat the core installation of the package. And for those that are really hardcore and they only want the bare minimum, we've got a minimum installation package. It's a standard zip file. It's not a Sitecore package, so you just extract it out onto the server. All right, and so another point of interest that you may have is what all is available in this module. You know, you've watched this video, or you've watched some of the other videos, but you need a guide. You really need something step by step to take you through it. We have a Git book that you can export to a PDF if you like, and we really go from start to finish. We have an introduction, all the things that are available, you know, how you install or contribute, all of the interfaces that are available, some sort of like blog posts converted into a book format so that you could go step by step how to interact with it. So working with items, for example, that gives you an idea of how to use the copy item or the get item commands. We've got some snippets in there so that you can just kind of copy and paste right into the interfaces and really get a good feel for how it works. Okay, so we'll jump back to the interface in Sitecore, and I'd like to talk a little bit about some audit reports that we have. So if we jump to the reporting tools, we've got PowerShell reports. So you'll see here there's a couple that were out of the box, configuration audit, content audit, media, and solution. And then I was playing around and I had created my own. So you as a developer could add your own reports into here. If you're familiar with the, I think it's called the Advanced System Reporter that's out on the marketplace, great module. What we've done is we've taken some of the great reports that we really liked and brought them over into SPE as PowerShell scripts. And then from here you can run a report. So let's say, for example, I want to get all of the locked items. I can prompt the user for some information like, hey, where in the tree do you really care? You know, do you want to scan everything, or do you want to go straight to, in this case, a content item? So I'm gonna change it to the home item. I could filter it by specific users, so maybe someone left and you want to go find everything that's locked by the former colleague, and then I'll proceed with it. So once the report returns the data, I'm able to see what the report shows. I can pick one. If I double click on it, it will take me straight to that item. So great. Hey, look, it is locked, as can seen by the gutter. Another point of interest is in the index viewer. You recall that at the top the title said index viewer. And in this particular case, we didn't brand the report. Okay, well maybe I should do that. Maybe I should go back and update this report. Well, you as a developer could create reports that are branded from the title standpoint. You could put whatever the title you want it to be, and then we even have a way to put an info window beneath here. So if I were to run the index viewer again, then you're going to see that this report's just a little bit has a little bit more TLC when we put it together. So I've got an index viewer. This one just says PowerShell script reports results, and then we've got an information window where I dynamically put data into here. So while we've bundled these in here, you could duplicate them, create your own, and tailor them to meet your business needs. All right, and so if we look at a couple more of the reports. Let's say, for example, media audit. I want to know what media items actually aren't being used, and so we've got a couple reports for that. Let's say media items not used by content items, so it has no reference to it, or maybe just completely unused media items. If you're trying to tailor or taper back the space that you're using in the database, this would be a great way to do that preliminary audit of what's not being used. If you were to just imagine, you know, let's say there's 500 images that you suspect aren't being referenced, you'd have to go through a lot of steps. You know, you'd have to go into the media library, and then you'd have to pick the item. Then you'd have to pick, you know, what is it referencing, and really that's just that's not practical for you to do that. And so we've really just tried to provide a way to simplify this. So as I was saying, if I click the image, then I believe it's I always forget. Yeah, navigate, links, and then the links would tell me what's referring to it. Well, if I've got 500 images that I suspect aren't being used, then I should probably go ahead and just run this report. It'll give me a ballpark of that. All right, and really the other reports, they're useful, but you may only use them once. But if you've got your own, let's say you want to create your own unofficial Sitecore library, then there would be a way to do that, and I can show you where that's at here in a little bit. All right, so let's jump into another interface that we've provided with SPE. So if I go to the PowerShell ISE, this is an interface that allows you to author scripts, and it also does some other things that are useful for the interface. So if I'm looking at it right here, maybe you viewing this demo, you're wondering, well, maybe it's hard for me to see the text in this video, and you want to give a demonstration, or you know, you're sitting with a team, you've got a projector, and it's hard to see it. I can go to the settings, and I can, you know, modify the settings to meet my needs. And in this case, I want to have size 23 font and source code pro. And so what it did is this editor now has larger font for me. So that's great. I'm sure anyone watching is going to appreciate that. Now, from this interface, this is a great way for you to test out some scripts, get your feet wet, really try to figure out what the module can do, how you interact with items. So if I were to jump back to the book and I looked at the working with items, there's an example of get items by path. So if I were to just copy and paste this into the editor, and then I use Control E or click this execute command, then I get some results back. But from here, I don't really see everything. I just see some standard fields that everybody would want to know. They want to know the name, they want to know the ID, and then maybe the template. But you, as a user that's working with this console, or someone that's wanting to create a report, you can add or remove those properties that are available. So in this example, I'm going to select object, which is another command that's chained together. So I call get item returns one item, and it passes down this what we call a pipeline, and pipeline it to the select object command. So select object has a property. If I do Control spacebar, then it auto-completes for me. Now you may also go, well, how do I know that this select object is called select object? Well, if I did select spacebar, or excuse me, Control spacebar, it would pre-populate with some commands that are available. So I pick select object. Select object's a vanilla, out-of-the-box PowerShell command that you can take advantage of. So I go ahead and select that. I do property, and then I want to actually get everything when I run it. I want to know everything that's available. So I execute it. And now it changed it from a table format to a list format. That makes a lot more sense, because then I can just scroll down. So from here, I'm just going to scroll down, and I can see what other properties are there. This is really like saying, hey, if I were in Sitecore and I picked an item and selected the raw values checkbox, what would I get? And this is what you'd get. You get all these fields. Now, some of these are standard fields that you'd expect on the template, the standard values, the standard template, or one of the inherited ones. But some of these are also, automagic properties, things that we throw in there for you to just simplify interacting with it. So, for example, this PS path or provider path, these aren't something that would necessarily be within Sitecore, but we've thrown them in there because when you're interacting with them, you want some shortcuts, right? That's the whole point, is to be faster. And we continue to scroll down, and I see, other familiar fields like the name. And so let me go ahead and remove this, and we want to save this as a variable. So in PowerShell, variables are preceded by a dollar symbol. So I do dollar, I do the variable name equals, and so now I've assigned this item to the item variable. When I run it, oh, no output. Okay, if I mouse over, in the ISE, we've expanded that to give you a preview of some of those properties. Now, if I had used select object, and I only wanted the name and the ID, Control E, so it actually gives me a custom object, and so there's some information that we didn't quite know about it. So let's try a star. What would that do? So in this particular case, in the version I'm running, it doesn't seem to be expanding it, but that's okay. I'm able to find some other ways to access that property. So if I go to item dollar, I can do period, Control space, and now I get an expanded view of all those properties. And for disclaimer, I believe the version I'm using is 4.0 for SPE, so we've made some improvements in 4.2. So I can just scan through and see all of these properties. Maybe name is the one that I want. And once I've got this selected, maybe I just want to see the output of this. Well, I can highlight it, I can do selection, and I get my home. So pretty straightforward. It's similar to C#. You just a dot operator on an object, and you get the output of that. So if I run it again, it just outputs home for me. So in the ISE, you can see that I can author these scripts, but you also probably want to start saving some of these scripts. So let me jump and show you where all these scripts exist, and then show you what it looks like when I save it. So if I go to modules under system, so as an admin I go in, we've created this PowerShell module tree, and as you saw a moment ago, I changed the font and the font size, and so we've saved that under the option that were available. We've saved those under the console colors and fonts, so you can add your own if you like. But under the script library is where all of these SPE modules. So for the rest of this, when I refer to module, I'm speaking about a script library module, something that we've coined within the module SPE of how to really bundle up and make all your scripts exist in one place. So in previous versions, you would have all of these libraries, and it was hard to tell what we bundled with the module SPE module and what you as an author were creating. So in these modules with this these little icons, I think it's like a little coffee bean inside. This one shows that it's enabled, and in here we can see that the module's activated. And if I were to uncheck it and save it, in SPE we completely disable it everywhere. So if you've got maybe some context menus, the context menu would look something like under scripts, and you would see these guys here. Those would just vanish. If and so we can see some of those, like even ribbons. You can create little ribbon buttons. So as I've just shown now, that there's the ability to add these context menus. So in one of these modules we have that. So if I go look at let's say copy renderings, I have copy renderings, paste renderings. So if I go to the home item, I see copy renderings exists, paste renderings there, but it's just disabled. So this layout came from down here. So we've got this convention where if you start adding these libraries and you give it an icon, it'll be represented here in this tree. So this is one of those out-of-the-box features that we've come up with, a bundled tool, if you will, where you can copy renderings from one item to another. So here I showed you that it's the paste renderings is disabled. So if I click copy renderings, it runs a PowerShell script. I can see some details about what happened under the covers. It copied the rendering from that path. Then if I go to a child item, I see that paste rendering is now enabled. So a real cool thing about that is SPE is aware of the rules engine. So if I go look at the copy renderings, I can see that there's a rule under interactive. I can see there's a rule that says, hey, I want to enable it when the item has a layout. And if I go to paste renderings, oh, I don't see a rule under show, which we expect, but under enable I see one that says, hey, if there is a session called rendering copy session that's within PowerShell, then I want to enable that. Okay, well, we haven't really talked about what that is, but what's important is the fact that it's enabled when I wanted it to be enabled. And you can come up with all sorts of interesting rules. Maybe you want to have context menus only appear when the user's an administrator, and you want the script to execute when they're non-administrator, but you needed to run it under elevated privileges. So there are all some interesting things that you could do with this context menu option. So let's say that I want to add a new context menu. Well, I probably don't want to do it in one of the bundled ones that come with SPE. So I'm going to create a new module. So if I select module, then I can give it a module. So in this case, maybe call it UFC. And then I've got all these options about what I can pick. So in this case, I want to pick context menu. So what we've done is we've added that under Content Editor context menu. For those that have been introduced to the book, you'd know that it's in there. But if I want to jump back to that, I can show that, hey, under Modules, Integration Points, Content Editor, I have some details about how to create one of those. So it gives you a step-by-step how to add something under the content editor. In this particular case, we're interested in the context menu. So I'm going to add the context menu. So what I expect to see after this is done is XUFC and a context menu. Now it's empty. There's not any context menu available for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new PowerShell script library. And let's call this demo command. So now, if I right-click on the home item, or really I could have clicked anywhere, demo command appears. So it's aware of the tree structure that you create within the PowerShell script libraries. But you'll notice that nothing appears when I click on it. So let me go a little bit further, and I want to add a new PowerShell script. And let's call this say hello. Okay. Now, what I'm interested in is writing a script. Now, once again, I'm new to the module. I don't know how to write any scripts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the book, and I'm going to go into interactive dialogues. And the very first one is an alert. So I can say show alert and then give it some sort of message. So I'm going to just copy, paste that into here. But maybe I want a nicer interface to test it, right? So I can right-click on it and do Edit with ISE. So any PowerShell script that's in that tree, you can right-click and do Edit with ISE. It will open it right in this interface. And we now notice that the script that I selected is in the title. And if I were to change it to hello, it shows that it's been edited. So it's modified. There's some changes that I probably need to save, so that I can hit save. And it shows that it's saved. If I go back to here and select it again, we see that it now says hello. Great. So then I can go back. Really, I can go to any item. I can even pick the one that I have here and say hello. And then I get my dialogue, hello. Okay, so that's pretty simple. May not be useful just to say hello, but think of all of the interactive dialogues that you may come up with, like guiding the user through a couple steps, like, hey, give me your name, do a couple more things. Hey, what is your birth date? You know, you can think of all these interesting things to do, and behind the scenes in the PowerShell script, you're using the special logic to maybe create items, to delete files, all sorts of cool things. Maybe I want to go ahead and change this icon. Well, I don't want to do it now in the demo because sometimes it takes a while to load the icon library. But you get the point. You can see that when I right-click, I see this this demo command. Well, if I'm able to do that anywhere in here, that may not be useful in my use case. Maybe I only want to do it with content. So earlier we had seen that that something was disabled or enabled based on whether there was a layout. And so what I can do is I can go into this demo command, and I can say under interactive that I only want to show it if it's under the home item, or maybe only on a particular date do you want to enable. So there's all these rules that you could come up with that are pretty clever, but of course you don't want it too complex because then you might confuse the users. So let's say where the item is under the home item. So pick home, and then I'm going to save it. So let's say if I right-click again, okay, I don't see it, but if I go to the home item, looks like I don't see it there. Okay, maybe my rule is wrong. Let's see here. Where the item is the home item or one of its ancestor. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. So I need to play around with the rule maybe I should just go ahead and move it to enable. So let me delete this guy. Oh, maybe I didn't save it. That's probably the problem. So let's try enable. Oh, you know what? I meant to do the descendants. That's why. Okay, how simple. Simple mistake. So pick the home again. So it probably would have worked on the content item. Okay, so we've got it. It's enabled. If I go to here, it's there, but it's disabled. Okay, so that's the way I expected it to be. So remember, kids, when you're reading the rules, make sure you really know what you're talking about. So pretty straightforward. I've got rules enabled script. So as a new user, there's a ton of information, and I've seen that there's the book, but maybe I'm still a little bit confused about what else I need to show. Well, one interesting thing is we've come up with all of these bundled packages that give you an example of how to use the module. So if I go to, for example, getting started, I have a script library called user interaction, and we've got something called read variable. So let me edit that. And when I run it, I get this dialog. Okay, so this is like the kitchen sink of our dialogues. So it's a lot here, and you have to kind of sift through each individual one, which is why we have the book separated out. But from here, you can see that there's the ability to have tabs. You can see that there's information and checkboxes. And we've got password fields. I've got some other options like multiple checklist, radio buttons. You know, pretty trivial things you expect. But rather than maybe creating a Speak UI, or rather than you know, trying to re-engineer Sheer UI, you just use SBE with a little bit of PowerShell code to generate the interface for you. We've got you know, the date time that I showed you with the scheduled task. We've got the just really tree views, simple things that you expect to use. Even the rules. So we'll see here in a little bit that there's the rules-based report will allow you to use rules and predefined rules. And in this particular case, I wanted to use user or role selectors. So that's this particular part. But then rules, I get an edit rule interface. This part here is just a Sitecore interface. All we've done is really given you the ability to generate that anywhere on the screen that you want, or on any tab that you want. Great. Okay, so let me, before I dive too deep into the integration points, which is a little bit more complex feature, let me jump to another instance that I have. So in this instance, I installed a fresh 8.2. And I did mention the fact that the auditable reports wasn't bundled with SP anymore, and so as you can see, those two are missing. And I imagine in the future we'll remove some of these other ones and create separate packages. That way you can pick and choose what you're really interested in. So if I go ahead and do the installation wizard, I can now pick the auditable reports. The reason why I wanted to show you this is because what's in the newer version is really cool, and I just want to make sure that you know that it's there. Okay, so I'll let this run real quick, and I want to jump back to the Stack Exchange. So if you're not using the Stack Exchange, I really recommend it. We have a tag specifically for PowerShell Extensions. So like today, I was, or maybe this was yesterday, yesterday I was curious about how can I run the agents that are defined within the configuration. So maybe I want to run a cleanup agent that deletes some old log files. Maybe I want to clean up the history or the event queue or the publish queue. You know, if I've got it configured to 6 days or 30 days, well, I don't really want to wait that long, and I don't want to go modify the configuration. And so what I've done is I've given you the ability through an example of a PowerShell script to instantiate the scheduler and to run it. And so from here you could actually modify the settings that are there to meet the need that you have. So I thought that was pretty cool. So if you've got any questions about how to use the module, this would be one place where you could post a question, say, hey, here's some research I've done, can't quite figure out my use case, I don't know how to delete all the language versions for a particular item. You know, this would be a great way to do some research and to, you know, get the word out on what you're looking for. You can also jump to Sitecore Slack. So from within here, we've got a channel where, you know, people monitor it sort of all throughout the day. Different countries, you know, we've got some folks in the U.S. like myself that are doing this during Central Time, and we've got some other folks that might be in Europe that are monitoring it. So I highly recommend if you've got a quick question, post it on here. If it gets a little bit more complicated, maybe jump to Stack Exchange, and then we can really provide a full-fledged response that would then be kept pretty much forever. Great, so now that I've got it installed, I can jump to the toolbox, and we'll see that the rules-based reports here. But this new version is really cool, and this is why I wanted to make sure that we saw it. So in the new version, in 4.2, you install the rules-based report. You actually get a way to save the rules. You didn't get that in previous versions. You had to choose it every time you ran the report. And so these rules right here, I've saved them somewhere in the tree, and so that I can go create my own in the future. So in this example, I want to know items that are locked. I can override where in the tree to search. Now the checkbox has a select all. Yeah, that's great. And then I can hit OK, and if it returns any results, great. If it doesn't, it will tell you, hey, no items matching your rule. Maybe I want to go ahead and create my own new rule. So I'm going to, once again, go back to the Sitecore tree, and then I'm going to go through and figure out which module contains the script that I need, and then I can create the rules-based report edition. So I'm going to go to System, Modules, PowerShell. Everything that you need for SP is going to be under this script library. So we've got authorizable reports. I think it's under reports. So we've added this new template type, which is why we broke it out. And this new template type is going to be a rule library and then a rule, PowerShell rule. So all I have to do is I can create a new PowerShell rule, and either I can do it in here, which for the demo is the easiest way to do it, but maybe for my company I want to create a separate module like I showed you earlier. One of the integration points besides reports is going to be you know, this rule. So here I want to call it demo rule, and under demo rule I can say what the root item that I want to. So the root item is really where do I want to start searching in the beginning. So here I want to say under home, and then the filter rule. 8.2 looks so much cleaner than the 8.0. So I'm going to scan through, and once again I'm going to look for something of interest. So let's say where the item is locked, and maybe that's not what I want to do. Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah. And where it's logged by a specific user. So the specific user, let's say it's Sitecore admin. Okay, so I'm going to pick the item. Oh, yes, I need to save that. I'm going to lock the item. Then right away the new rule is available. So I've got my demo rule selected, and I'm going to hit OK. Now we get an option for what fields I want to include in the report. So here I can pick the title and the text. Then we pre-populate the standard fields, so I can scan through and say, hey, I want these additional fields because maybe I want to know they're created or the updated date. And then I can also save any of these settings to that rule, and the next time I run the rule, it's going to show up pre-filled for me. So let's say if I go ahead and do save. So I expect these to be selected next time. Okay, so rules-based report. You see I've branded the report, and then here it shows the title and text here. So if I want to run it one more time, you'll see that nothing's changed here, but then these are pre-selected, and I didn't change anything here, and I get the same two fields. So that's a great way to set up something in advance for some users. And to be honest with you, I think this would really replace many of these reports that we wrote in here, where they're pretty straightforward, and the rules engine would cover those scenarios. So like the locked items, that would be a good way to just replace this report. And we may do that in the future. So I would recommend that if you wanted to create new reports, first see if the rules engines would meet the need. And then you could have a user build the rule without any PowerShell code being written. And then if you think that, hey, the use case is very specific and I want to do a bunch of special logic or show different dialogues to the user, then you would write a script that that maybe is based off of one of these other reports that adds those different steps for you. Great. So once again, when we were creating this module, you saw a dialogue that had to do with these integration points. So what are the integration points? So if I jump back to the library, to the book rather, the integration points are really ways that you as a developer, when writing scripts, can package things up within the module, and they have different functionality. So we've created a content editor integration library, integration point. This has the context menu, the gutters, the insert item, ribbon buttons, a warning. The warning is the content editor warning that would appear, such as something up here. Yeah, so you could. There's a way for you to create your own little warning there. And when we go through here, we've got steps to how to do that. So it's a simple guide to just show you step by step what to do if you ever forget. We've got a way to add commands within the control panel. You know, some popular ones are the functions. So the function is a pretty cool thing. So if I go into the ISE, we know that we have these commands like show alert. Okay, so most of these commands are built into the core DLLs of SPE. In PowerShell world, this would be called a commandlet. It's a compiled version of a command. But you may write your own function. Right? So I may have a function that exists somewhere in this library, and if I go back to Audit Reports, we'll see that there's a function here called show search result detail. And if I go edit that, we see that this is all, you know, hand coded, and it's saved as a script. But there's not a default way to load that every single time a script runs. We really wouldn't want to do that because it would create a performance problem. You just imagine, you know, someone adds 100 functions and then it runs all the time. Then you'd really slow down the system. The commandlets are pretty high performant because they're compiled, and we can guarantee that they're not executing any unnecessary code. These functions, you could actually save anything you want in here, but by convention, you would put a function, you would define a function with a name and some logic in here, and then when you import it, all it does is run the function, but then you would execute the function later on in your script. So while that was quite repetitive and maybe never used the word function so many times in a sentence, this is how you would import it. So we've got import function, and then we've auto-completed that for you. So you're obviously going to forget it at some point, or you're not going to be aware of all the functions that are available. So any module, SPE module that is enabled, that I showed you earlier, the little bean in the bottle, when that's enabled, the functions will exist in this list. So we've bundled some that are useful, like clearing the recycle bin, or compressing, a zip file, and you just go down the line. There's a ton of functions here that are available to you. But if you wrote your own, then it'll show up on this list. So that's a pretty neat thing. And once again, that's in the book, so you can go look under the function section, and we would give you details about that. So we were looking at the content editor here earlier, and so if I jump back to this UFC, we see that we've got the hello. We remember that we've got rules that we can use on there, but now what I want to do is, instead of using a context menu, I want to use a ribbon button, and so that's something you would want to show up here. So what you could do is you can create a new integration point library, and then I can go through here and pick the one that I'm most interested in. And in this particular case, I want to create a ribbon. So while this runs, I'll jump back to, actually, you know what? I meant to do that in this this other one. So let me do that real quick. So here I'm going to create a whole new library. I want to make sure that you see the some differences between 4.0 and 4.2. So here I'm going to create a new module called XDemo, and you'll see that the interface is a little bit cleaner. It's got the 8.2 fonts, and we've got this select all. So I'm going to pick the ribbon. Ribbon takes a little bit to run, and what it's going to do is it's going to pre-populate with all of these PowerShell script libraries that align with the tabs and the chunks that exist up in here. So rather than me trying to figure out what they are or to hand type them, when I add it, it's going to pre-populate all of those for me. So it looks like this one's completed. So if I refresh it, now you'll see that I have the ribbon. And maybe I want to, under the home, I want to create a new script. So here I've got write. Maybe I want to create it under, let's say, maybe I want to do it under developer. And I go to developer, and maybe I want to go to indexing. So I can just simply create a new PowerShell script, and then it's going to show up under here wherever I need it to. Probably the safest, what would be most available to users, is going to be something under here. Okay, so now that we have it, you're going to first need to go into the ISE. Now this is really the part that's unusual, but someone who's familiar with creating ribbons is going to say, oh, well, this is pretty straightforward and actually easier. So if you have to create a ribbon command, you need to go to the core database and you need to create some items. So what we've done is we've simplified that process where you just run the sync and it'll look through all of the SPE modules, and anything that is adding a ribbon, it will do it for you, right? Another thing that you may be curious about is, well, I got all these things in this tree, but really none of that matters to me. All I care about is this demo command. So what we've also done is we've added this way to purge. Let's see, where is it at? Oh, maybe it's under here. Yeah, purge empty libraries. What this will do is it'll scan through the tree and it will remove script libraries that you don't need, that are empty, that have no PowerShell script associated with it. So we give you all of them up front, so you don't have to guess on it, and then we give you a quick, simple way to remove them on the fly. And so while this guy's running, we'll jump back to the 8.2 demo, and we've got this X demo. So once again, all of these guys are created. I'm able to go into here and I can create my PowerShell script called demo command. And then in the ISE, once again, I'm going to go into here and I want to rebuild the ribbon. And then this is going to output a dialog for me. Here in a little bit, it'll show up down below the view script results, and it'll tell you everything that it deleted. It's a little hard to see. It's a blue color, but you can see that here it added something, and then it removed a whole bunch of other things from here, and then it's boom, it's done. And if I recall correctly, you have to refresh the screen. And now we have our demo command. But when I click it, it just does that. You know, that's not too useful. So I'm going to go into Modules, PowerShell, Script Library. I save this under Xdemo. And then I'm going to go to Home, New Demo Command, Edit. Okay. And just as we saw earlier, I wanted to show alert. Okay, and then I'm going to hit Save. Now maybe there's a time where you'd like to resave the script as a copy. Then you can obviously do Save As, and then pick whatever destination you want. So maybe I'm doing some refactoring and I want to save some of this in a different place. Then I can just do it this way. I can browse through here. I can pick a different place. So under New. And then I'm going to call this demo command 2. And now you see that it has the new name. And now we have both of them. So if I were to run the little ribbon synchronizer, then both of these commands would show up. But at any rate, I'm in here. This guy is going to say show alert. And right away, I get my demo command clicked. So pretty straightforward. I didn't have to write and deploy code out to the server. All I did was do some minor configuration, potentially copy and paste a simple script into this dialog. But if I decided I wanted to go more complex, then I could certainly do that. So maybe I jump into here under the interactive dialogues. And as I scroll through, I can see that there's far more robust options. So in this case, I've got a OK cancel. So this is called I believe, a confirmation. Yeah, confirmation. Here I've got an OK cancel. Maybe I want to have a couple different options like delete or cancel, something like that. We also have some upload dialogues. So this is probably another really cool feature that you may be interested in. So let me go to download. So maybe I want to download a particular file. So I'll go to my command 2 and I want to edit. I'll get my nice little user experience here and hit save. So assuming that existed, which in this dialog it tells me there's an error. So this is something that you may encounter, and let me increase the font so it's a little bit easier to read. So I'll do 23, source code probe. Okay, so if you're ever writing a script and you get a little nervous because you don't know what's going wrong, we have an output, a PowerShell output that shows you what the mistake is or what the error is. Like maybe the file doesn't exist. Now in this particular case, get item throws a message that says can't find an item at that path. Okay, well that's fine. Maybe it's the wrong item path. So I can go into my media library. Maybe I can go under Facebook, and maybe I want to just download this picture. So I'm going to pick it, and then I would go back into my script. Now, this probably isn't too useful, given the fact that this file path may change over time. You may want to create a separate kind of dialog for the user that, that lets them pick a media item to download. Let me synchronize this guy real quick. Okay, so it runs to it, and then if I were to refresh the interface, now I've got my second command, and all is well. So in this dialog, you get the path and the file size, and then when you click download, it'll just open the browser to download wherever you need. One interesting point to make is that by default, we only show the file name. We don't show the full path. There is a way within the command to give it the full path, but by default, for security, we want to just limit to only the most important information, which is the file name. Great. So we've really covered a lot of the majority of the features that are available in the module right out of the box. Didn't require too complex of scripting, but you may find that you aren't quite sure how to do far more complex things. And so, as I mentioned, you can go to some of these pre-written scripts that so like the read variable. So let me go to this other one. Well, what you want to do is open up the script and scan through to get an idea of how we've written it. And in this example, we've written a command called read variable that takes some parameters, such as a hash table that contains a name and a value, and some other details that set up the dialog. And then when we get the results back, in this case, we're just going to output it to the screen. Now, this is something that Adam had recently developed because people felt like, hey, I want to collect some information, but I want to do some validation. So we now have a way to validate within the module. So let's say if I hit proceed, I get some error messages presented to the user that say, hey, you need to provide a value, or hey, this password needs to meet a particular pattern. Pretty straightforward now. So if I want to go back to it, I can look at it and see that, okay, to create this dialog, I set up some of these hash tables, and anything that's in the name will be generated as a variable. So here we see username. There's now a username variable, password and description, and within each hash table, you can add a validator script block. And here we can see that there's a variable, sort of a local variable, to description. When that script block runs, variable references the whatever's typed into the text box. Get the value. If it's null or empty, add an error message to that variable. And so I won't go too much detail of all of the steps, but basically, if you wanted to copy this, just copy and paste it, put it into a new script, and then start tweaking it to meet the needs that you have for your particular use case. Now, one other point that I wanted to bring up is sometimes you may want to do elevated access type procedures, but the user that you're making these tools available to is maybe a content editor. And so if we refer back to the book, we've got a couple other sections that are really important. We've got a list of all the commands that are available. This is probably 98% up to date as of this demo. We have a new using block command, and the new using block command is a way for you to use the security disabler or the user switcher. So we can see here that I've created an example where the user switcher switches to an anonymous user and then performs some operation. So if I were to paste this into a script, I could first I could first check to see who the user is, but then here I could switch to maybe an admin. So let's just say, for example, I want to switch to the Sitecore admin. So I'm going to make the switcher use the admin user. So if I highlight this real quick, I could do selection. It shows me that it returns back the admin user. It saves that to a variable. Then I call the new using block. And if I do get user current, what it did within this script block is it ran as admin and then shows that it returns back the admin. Okay, well that's kind of confusing. Maybe I create another user for the demonstration. So let me go ahead and create one real quick. Oh, I do have a couple users. So let me use Michael. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say we want to use Michael. And now it shows that it returned the current user, and the current user is Michael. So if we take a step back and say, I'm building a UI, I want to give a particular role the ability to unlock items, but I don't want to give that role the elevated access to unlock everybody. Maybe I only want to give them access to unlock for a particular site or a particular part of the tree. Then I'm able to use this user switcher, and then within this little script block, I can do whatever I want. I can do show alert, and maybe the title is let's see. Actually, I probably should keep that current user. I think that's the right one. Okay, so in this example, I'm getting the current user, and then I'm using the current user's name within the message. So maybe I say, hey, Michael, do you want to unlock this account? So I've personalized it. Probably be full name or some other property on the user's object. But then I could give them a very customized message, and then perform some action based on their hitting OK. Probably make more sense to do a confirm. And we run it one more time. Unlock the item, Michael. And if I hit OK, then do one thing. If I don't, and so as you can see here, the show confirm has a result. So if I run it one more time, we can see it says yes or no. If you're not quite sure in the future, then you can go back to the interactive dialogues, and then we go to the confirmation. Return value is yes or no. In this case, they're labeled OK and cancel, but the return value is a yes or no. And so then I can write some custom logic here to say result, and if result equals yes, then do something. Okay, so a little lesson in PowerShell. There are operators for comparison, such as equals. There's not equals. Those are case insensitive. So if I put all uppercase, this would have still worked. I hit yes. Here we did do something. Pretty straightforward. In a future session, we'll cover some more advanced features such as debugging. So a way to write a script and run it and while you're working on the script, be able to hit breakpoints within the editor, like here. But we'll reserve that for a much future session, maybe early next year. So we've really covered some of the basics of the ISE. I'm able to run scripts. I can create new ones. I can save them. I can open existing ones. Maybe I want to do a search for a script. Earlier I had a show script. So here I can type show and hit enter, and it will filter out based on ones that start with show. I could scan through the tree. We saw that I can save or reload. I can execute the current script. It's nice to be able to do that from within here. Let's say, for example, you've authored a script that should only work from within the home context. Then from within here, you can say the context is the home item. Maybe you want to test it so it only works within down within the PowerShell script libraries, or maybe it only works in the media library. Then while you may create a rule on that script or the script library to take effect, then while you're in this editor, it's not operating against those rules. So you can just change the context to say, hey, I want to act like I'm within the media library. And then if I do item equals get item path period, the period would be the current path. Then when I execute it, you'll see that the current path is media library. So the context is similar to using a change directory like cd and then some path. CD is actually an alias for set location, and that's where I would say master media library. But that's not too convenient while authoring these scripts, so simply changing the context is a way to do that. So if you've upgraded to 4.2, we've added some really cool features here. You're now able to change based off the language and operate as a particular user. So here we only have the admin, but if I created, in this case, in this instance, if I created Michael and I created Rebecca and all these other different users, then I would be able to switch between the different users. So I could do current user, or in this case I can browse, and then I can go pick a different user. So let me just show you that real quick so you believe me. So I'm going to go to Security and User Manager. And you know what? Now that I think about it, going to this dialog is kind of inconvenient. So what if I just wanted to create a new user automatically? You know, maybe through some remote script that runs, or you know, a periodic scheduled task that looks and says, hey, this user doesn't exist. So here I can create a user named Michael, and the password is going to be secret, and I guess probably the email is important. And you know, obviously I could set the portrait. I do want them enabled. Maybe the full name. So imagine wanting to create a bunch of users from a spreadsheet, or you know, on demand using that delegated administration I showed just a moment ago. You could do that. You could grant a particular role the ability to create new users, but not give them access to the user creator tool, the user manager. So here I'm going to create a new one, and if all works out, it's created Michael, and now Michael exists. Okay, that's pretty cool. So if I want to go back into here, maybe I just comment that out, and I do get user current. If I execute it, I'm the admin. If I want to switch to a different user, I can pick Michael, and now I'm Michael. So in the script, I can test it as a different user, and I don't have to log in and log out. So that's pretty clever. But maybe I want to know if a user has access to a particular item. Like maybe I want to know if a user has access to the home item. Then what we're able to do is we have some commands for access control. So I think it's called item ACL. Yep. And then we're going to give it a path. Content home. Oh, and looks like there's no ID. Is that the right path? Oh, you know what? I don't quite know what the right syntax is. So I can do Control Enter, and I get this help dialog. And so I can scroll through and say, oh, this is the syntax for that particular command. So when I'm fumbling around in my demo, then I can just jump to here and figure out what is the right way to do it. So here, if I scroll down, then I can see that I've got a command that creates new access rights for, or new access right object for a particular user. And then I can get the user and I can set it onto that. But maybe I want, in this case, I want to test it out. So here I'm going to say test item ACL, a particular user, and what access do I want to know that they have. So I'll just do this instead of what I have here. And let's see, it did output, so I'm going to say read. Actually, you know what? Author 2 doesn't exist, but Michael does. And so this would tell me if I have the access or not. Oh, you know what? There are no child items. Aha. Okay, now I know that I have access to that item, read access in this case. So there's just so much that I could cover, and while that's, that would be my passion to be able to talk to you all night about it. I want to equip you to know what to look for, and I want you to know how to look for it. So I just selected a report that shows all of the commands that are available and gives a brief description about what's there. We talked a little bit about the book and how you can go look up all sorts of examples for that. And so for the next session, what I'd really like to cover is how to interact with SPE through remoting. There's continuous integration that organizations are trying to come up with to really help their development teams move product through environments quickly. And SPE has remoting. And so I'll give you a brief glimpse of it, just so that that you're excited and interested for the next session. So if I were to bring up a PowerShell console, so that'll take just a moment to bring up. Out on the marketplace, we have a package for SPE remoting. And once you've installed that on your machine, and once again the book has installation steps for that, then we want to import the SPE module. And if I run the get command, I can see that there's a handful of commands available. And so what I want to do is I want to interact with a remote instance. So this could be 1 or it could be 5. Let's say you've got 5 different instances and you want to perform the same operations on those. Maybe you're trying to report some information. So we're going to create a new session object. So we're going to call it a new script session. And the username is obviously going to be admin or Michael or something that's secure. Now in version 4.2, we've required you to use a role, a PowerShell remoting role, to enable this. And then the admin user wouldn't work. You need to have a different user, you could create a special SPE remoting role and add them to this PowerShell remoting group, and then they are granted access. So then it makes it very easy to disable the remoting access. We also have some additional setup for enabling and disabling the service, but we'll cover more of that in a future session. So we've got the password. Now the connection is going to be the URL to your remote instance. Now, I highly recommend that when you start using remoting, that you use HTTPS. And in the future session, we'll go over more details about securing it and a lot of the more advanced features of interacting with remote instances. So I create a new session, and now I run a command called remote script, invoke remote script. So I'm going to specify a script block. This is like an anonymous function where you've got some code that gets executed, and we're going to pass that to the server. And then I'm going to pass in the session object. So this is going to tell it which server to operate on. So this invoke remote script is really a generic command. And just like in some of the other examples, I want to get a user. In my setup, it doesn't pre-populate with SPE commands, but we're trying to figure out a good way to do that. But if you write a script that works within the remote instance, you can just copy and paste that into here. So it's pretty straightforward to do that. Then I'm going to run it, and I get the results back. If I want to see what objects are available, then I can do get member. And this shows me that it's a deserialized version of the Sitecore security accounts user object. But then these are all the properties that are available. So once again, it is a rehydrated version of what was on the server. So don't treat it like it's something that's actively available for you to operate on against the server. All it is a snapshot of what was on the server at that time. So if you did something like get process, that's going to just give you a snapshot of what was running at that moment. But then you would need to write a script that says, hey, if I want to do something with that user or with that process or with those items, then I'm going to, at runtime, check some conditions and then operate on it. You don't really want to use the invoke remote script to bring stuff back and then try to operate on it immediately. Okay, so great. So this is just a preview of that. If you want to get started on setting up the module, we have a section in the book for remoting. And I've got a nice little video that gives you some step-by-step instructions on how to get it set up. And then you can scroll through and see some examples of how to work with the remoting module. And in 4.2, we're going to add more details about how it's secured. But you can check out the security section to see what current versions have for security hardening. So the configurations on how to enable and disable these remoting. So maybe you don't want it to work in a production environment, or even in a non-production environment. You want to totally disable some of these features. In the next session, we'll talk about manipulating files on the server. So maybe you want to delete log files, or you want to download all of the images from the media library. There's ways to do that in here, but we're really just running out of time to cover that tonight. I really appreciate you giving me your attention and your interest into the module. As Akshay and Mike had spoke about earlier, there's some ways to get in touch with us on the first slide. And so I'll go ahead and shift it back over to Akshay and let him share some closing thoughts on the presentation and any questions that you may have. And Akshay, I think you might be muted.
Yes, I am, and I'm talking on mute. All right. So here's a little bit of information on how you can get in touch with people who do SPE, especially Michael. and Adam. So there's a specific channel on Slack where people ask questions about SPE. Also, the Git book, I honestly like that saved my life so many times. So you have to check that out. It gives you access to every single help you can get on all the commands. So that's a good resource there as well. You could check out the repo for SPE as well as any question which the community will benefit from. It's always a good idea to post it on the Stack Exchange so that later on someone else might have the same question and they can definitely help you out. And you could always use the Sitecore with the PowerShell hashtag in Twitter in order for you to get some help on the Twitter if you guys are on Twitter and happen to need help. Um, we finished the demo, but I'll let you. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It's Mike's um, animated GIFs anyway. So uh, again, thanks so much for joining. This is the first of many SP sessions. This is the basic one, but I'm sure we'll try to get a couple of the other sessions where we'll get into more complicated things, how to do a few of the complicated tasks with SP. That's what I always use it for. Thanks again for joining, and thanks, Michael, for spending your night doing this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share it, and I appreciate all those that are supporting the module and going to the marketplace and recommending it and upvoting it and just sharing the love.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.